Let's dive right into this fascinating explainer. Today, we're building a bridge between the highly technical architecture of the internet and ancient Vedantic philosophy. I absolutely love it when two seemingly totally different worlds collide like this. We are going to look at the exact framework that allows you to send an email or stream a video, and we're going to map it, literally layer by layer, onto the spiritual architecture of human consciousness. If you've ever wondered how the strict, rigid rules of computer networking could possibly relate to the cosmos and ancient spirituality, well, you are in exactly the right place.
We're going to start with the classic IT mnemonic used to remember the 7 OSI networking layers. Please do not throw these samosa plates away. Now, if you work in tech, you've probably heard some variation of this about 1,000 times. The P stands for physical, D for data link, N for network, T for transport, S for session, P for presentation, and A for application. It's just a fun, simple way to memorize the technical stack. But by the time we finish this explainer, you are going to see this exact same sequence in a completely divine light. But before we start connecting all the spiritual dots, we just need a quick baseline. The OSI model basically represents how data moves from physical hardware all the way up to a user application. Think of it like a giant ladder. Down at the very bottom, you just have raw electrical signals, hardware. But as you climb up layer by layer, those signals get grouped, routed, managed, encrypted, and finally presented as, say, a Word document or an email that a human being can actually read and use. Here is our roadmap for today. Tech meets ancient wisdom, gathering data, senses and mind, processing, intellect and desires, the illusion, ego and Maya, the source, Vishnu's dream, and finally, the universal architecture. All right, part 1, tech meets ancient wisdom. To do this, we're going to follow a single packet of data as it hits the physical hardware and travels all the way up the stack to the ultimate observer. It basically happens in 3 broad phases. First, we collect the raw data. Then, we process and route it, and finally, it reaches that highest application layer. Moving on to part 2, gathering data, looking at the senses and mind. So, layer 1 is the physical layer. In computer terms, this is pure binary, just ones and zeros. Think about how you bias a transistor, right? When you power on the base, a high voltage gives you a 1, a low voltage gives you a 0. That is the absolute most basic formation of data. And spiritually, this perfectly represents our 5 physical senses: sight, hearing, touch. Our senses are just constantly gathering raw high and low signals from the physical world around us, exactly like a transistor gathering raw binary data. Now, stepping up one level, the data link layer converts that raw binary into manageable chunks called frames. It uses MAC addresses to keep track of where they came from. Identically, our mind acts as a 6th sense. The mind's entire job is to collect all those raw ones and zeros from our 5 senses and package them into frames, into coherent thoughts and perceptions. It takes the messy physical data and organizes it. Let's move to part 3, processing, which covers intellect and desires. This brings us up to layer 3, the network layer. In IT, this layer is all about IP addresses and routing. It decides where the data actually needs to go and how it relates to the rest of the network. Spiritually, this correlates flawlessly to our intellect, or what is called buddhi. Once the mind has gathered those sensory frames we just talked about, the intellect steps in to understand the use of that data. It figures out where to send it and how it relates to our lives. The intellect is essentially the ultimate router of human experience. Okay, intel is great, and knowing where to route data is totally essential. But hold on a second. What actually dictates how reliably we process all this data? There's an underlying reliability factor that powers how this entire network functions, and that brings us to our next layer. And this is where the connection gets really brilliant. Layer 4 is the transport layer. In networking, this is entirely about reliability. Are you using TCP, which is highly reliable for precise data transfer, or are you using UDP, which is more of a broad, fast broadcast? Spiritually, this mirrors our chitta, or as it's referred to in teachings like the Chimaya mission, our vasanas. Vasanas are our deep-seated old desires. Just as the transport layer dictates the strength and reliability of a data connection, the strength of our old desires, our vasanas, massively affects how data travels to our mind and senses. Our deep desires literally act as the transport protocols for our conscious experience. All right, part 4, the illusion, exploring ego and Maya. To truly wrap our heads around the 5th layer, we need to quickly define a really beautiful spiritual concept called anthakarna.
This is the overarching inner instrument of a human being. It's the whole package. It comprises everything we've built so far: the mind, the intellect, or buddhi, the chitta, and importantly, the ego, or ahankar.
So, in tech, Layer 5 is the session layer. It decides how many sessions are needed, how to start them, how to end them, and how to maintain the connection. Spiritually, this is the Antakarana, and specifically, the ego. The ego manages the session of our waking life. But here is the fascinating twist from the source material. The ego is just a reflection. Imagine the true divine self, Ishwar, is the letter I. The ego in the mirror is I dash. It's just a reflection maintaining the connection. The person in the mirror thinks they are super powerful, acting as the anchor, but they aren't the true source. They're just running the session.
Now, before we reach the final application at the very top, the data has to be formatted and encrypted, which introduces the profound spiritual concept of Maya. Layer 6 is the presentation layer. This is where data gets converted into specific file formats. Like, is this going to be a Word file or an Excel file? Crucially, this is also where encryption and decryption happen. So, what is the perfect spiritual translation for a layer that encrypts data and formats reality? It's Maya. Maya is the cosmic illusion. It is the universal source of encryption that masks the true divine reality, formatting it into the varied, incredibly complex physical world we think we're experiencing right now.
Section 5. The Source. Vishnu's Dream.
We made it to the top. The crucial point is this. Layer 7 is the application layer. In our daily lives, this is the email client you open up, or the Word file you're actually typing in. It's the final user interface. But spiritually, who is the ultimate user? According to this profound comparison, the application layer is Shri Vishnu himself dreaming. Vishnu is the one dreaming this entire reality. He is the ultimate user preparing the Word file, writing the email of our existence. Everything below this layer is just the network facilitating his divine dream.
And finally, Section 6, the Universal Architecture. Let's step back and look at the cheat sheet, which beautifully summarizes our journey. Think about it. From the physical hardware of our five senses, gathering raw data, framed by our mind, routed by our intellect, powered by the transport protocols of our deep desires, maintained by the session of our ego, encrypted by the cosmic illusion of Maya, all serving the ultimate application, Vishnu's dream. It essentially proves that the rigid, logical architecture of the internet perfectly mirrors the ancient Vedantic architecture of human consciousness. The source material leaves us with this incredible realization. Actually, everything is I-only. This is actually Vishnu's dream. You know, we spend so much time believing our ego, our I- is the one in control. We think we're the ones sending the messages and managing the network. But the next time you sit at your computer to send an email, or even just pause to ponder how a tiny transistor is being biased with voltage, ask yourself, in this grand, beautifully structured illusion of Maya, who is the ultimate user actually writing the file? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it completely shifts the way you look at the technology sitting right in front of you.